engagement, DVC ARPE at Dar es Salaam Tumaini University, Datu. He is also a member of the University Council and the chairperson of the Governing Council of the Institute of Finance Management, IFM. Professor Mjema holds a bachelor degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Dar es Salaam. He earned his master's degree in engineering management from the University of Alberta in Canada. RWTH Aachen University in Germany, specializing in computer simulation and information technology. In 2006, he undertook an executive training program on innovation and competitiveness at Harvard Business School in Boston, USA. Professor Mjema began his academic career in 1987 as a tutorial assistant at the University of Dar es Salaam, where he steadily rose through the ranks to become associate professor in 2005 and full professor in 2018. His academic journey reflects a strong commitment to research, innovation, and higher education management. In February 2013, Professor Mjema was appointed Director of the College of Business Education, CBE, a position he held until December 2022. During his tenure, he led major institutional transformations, including the expansion of CBE's infrastructure and academic programs, such as the completion of the Bayer campus. He was instrumental in promoting digital transformation, research excellence, and innovation in business education. Shortly, that's the biography of Professor Mjema. I would like to welcome Professor for his keynote speaker. You're welcome, Professor.
Carolyn Agenda 2063, that universities are not just about knowledge transfer, but they are engine of transformation. So whenever given opportunity, See, the emphasis is about skill, but also to drive at the university level, and then thirdly, to support national development agenda. So it means whenever we prepare our strategic plan, we have to look at higher frameworks. What is the national agenda is? What is the African agenda is? What are the SDG and how are we going to implement, to support the fulfillment of those agenda through our researches? That's why we decided to contribute to the SDGs and the African Agenda 2063. The challenge which I'm going to look at the African level are 7, which are resource constraint, infrastructure and technology gap, quality assurance, human capital development, governance and autonomy, and graduate employability and research capacity. So I'm going to talk first in the general, looking at the African perspective. Later now focus at the. Let's look at first at the resource constraint. In all higher institutions, especially in Africa, we've had heavy reliance on government subventions and tuition fees. Compared to universities here, for example, in Canada, in America, they depend a lot on the alumni, they depend a lot on the industry to finance the researches, to finance the universities. But ours, because we don't have a big industrial base, we are depending mostly on the government subvention, which is not sufficient, and also on tuition fees, which are also very low. So it means that we don't have sufficient resources because we are depending on the government subvention. As a result, most of these learning institutions were in a very, very bad shape. Go to the offices, to the classroom, to the theaters, laboratories, in a very bad shape because there were no funds for infrastructure development, and staff remuneration were very poor, and they're still very poor. When you look at the funding of higher learning institutions in some few African institutions, in African countries, we find that the one which is doing better is South Africa, because it was agreed that each country should spend at least 1% of its GDP to science and technology and high-end led development and research. In Tanzania, it is only about 0.7% of GDP that is being spent on the higher learning institution, higher education. It means that when you compare now Tanzania to those countries which have a high percent of GDP spent on the higher education, they are performing much better. For example, compare ourselves to the South African universities or Nigerian or Kenya, find that they are a bit far in technology because of the funding. I remember in the early 90s, University of Dar es Salaam in the ranking was among the best 10. We were number 8 in Africa. In fact, in Sub-Saharan Africa, University of Dar es Salaam was the first. The rest were from South Africa, from Egypt. But Saharan African University of Dar es Salaam was the first one. But right now, it's not even in the top 20 because of poor funding in higher education, which has affected a lot the research area for University of Dar es Salaam. Another aspect is about infrastructure and technology gap. Because there is a high increase of population, high big number of students, find that we have highly overcrowded classes. and some of them are accredited facilities. You go to university to find that the workshop which I used in 1983 as a student, go to the mechanical workshop, but still the machinery is there. Professor Mganilo, when you go to University of Dar es Salaam, the two workshops which we were there, the same machinery is still there. We are very few, only 40 in mechanical engineering. Right now, 200, but it's still the same labs and everything, still which we used to do during our time, for that still there. But also the digital divide, the internet cost in Africa is very high compared to developing countries. So it means that some of the cases which you could go online, it becomes difficult because of the accessibility of the internet. And COVID-19 exposed our weaknesses. During the shutdown, during COVID, we were expecting to run some of the courses online, but because of the digital divide, we could not be able to develop those online programs. Now, another aspect is the quality assurance in mass enrollment. So, there is a very high rising of enrollment, but the resources are static. As I said, the same resources I used when I was in a bachelor degree program are still being used right now, where the number have already gone almost 100 times compared to the number of students. So there is a very high rising of the number of students, but the resources remain static. So because of that, it is difficult to maintain standard. I remember when I was in first year engineering, every student, first year student has a welding machine. You could do our welding, we could do machining, but right now, those practicals are never being done because you don't have sufficient facilities. So because of that, we find that there is a problem of quality assurance. Another issue is when you look at the human capital challenges. Because we have very few human resources, teachers, especially the teaching in human resources, and we have increased the number of classes, found that we have a very high teaching loads, but very little facilities. So very little facility for research. So people are more doing the teaching rather than doing the research. As a result, research output are very few compared to if we had sufficient lecturers to carry out the research and also to balance between research and teaching. But because of the limited number of lecturers, we are being given very high teaching load and we're not able to balance. Another issue is about governance and autonomy. There is a tension between autonomy and government oversight. We need the academician to have that academic freedom. But because of government, look at the kind of control we have. Even right now, we don't have freedom to open the university as we did. It has already disturbed the almanac. But because the oversight of the government means that the universities do not have that kind of freedom which we used to have. It is as if the academician, their mouth are shut. We cannot even challenge the government because government has a very big hand at higher learning institution. And also even the program, sometimes we don't have that freedom to start any program anytime when we see it because of the bureaucracy in the accreditation. When you start a new program to the time when it's being accepted for accreditation, it may take some few years. So because of that, we are lagging behind because of that. Another issue is about graduate employability. There is a high mismatch between training and the labor market. And that has been the cry of many employers, that there is this mismatch between the training and the labor market. And the employers demand soft skills and innovations. But what are we teaching? Do we have some specific program which are dealing with the soft skill and innovation? Very few. Thank you, CBE. We have started this effort in entrepreneurship modules and apprenticeship programs which are trying to respond to this kind of problem. So, what are the opportunities and emerging responses to this challenge in general, which I have said, is the existence now the PPPs, collaboration with the industry to improve student internship through its apprenticeship program. Yesterday, the rector here informed us about our new program, which have already approved for the apprenticeship, and people will, students will have spent half of their time at the college and half of it at the employers. But also the digital transformation has helped us to catch up, where before we were behind developing, but with this kind of innovations, then we'll be able to be there. Now let's come to the case of CBE. That was a general in Africa, and now let's come to CBE. I'll talk first about the situation which, when I started being the leader, and at the time when I was in exit. In 2013, when I became the rector, CBE had only 3 academic staff with a PhD. So, and the research was almost 0. But by the time when I finished my time, it was almost grown to 43. Right now, it's more than 50 PhD at CBE. And the staff development program included scholarship, mentorship, partnership with international universities, especially big thank to University of Eastern Finland. It helped us a lot to have many PhDs and so in a short period. About research and publication, in 2013, CBE had 0 publication, totally 0 publication. People were just involved in only teaching. But currently, we have more than 100 publications per year. Rector yesterday said this year we have almost 200 publications. So it means that things have changed from 0 to 200 publications per year. And external funded research project at that time was 0, but right now at least 3 funded projects are being taken annually. And this growth reflects the development of sustainable research culture. So it means that the CBE has developed that research culture which everybody now is willing to take the research fund and to be able to go to the research. So the research culture was institutionalized through policies, through incentives that will give some more small fund for people to come to go carry to research, and also to join conferences, especially international conferences, like the Applied Research Conference in Africa. CBE is one of the major contributors to this ARCA, Applied Research Conferences in Africa. Student enrollment increased from almost 7,500 to about 17,000. Now I'm told that it have reached almost 22,000. But the increase of the number of students is caused by expansion of academic programs, which is aligned with the labor market. But this increase, I'll talk about it later. Another case is about infrastructure. So CBE moved from old, dilapidated classroom to modern academic infrastructure. So we did a lot of transformation in the CBE classroom, the lecture theaters, ICT facilities, modern library, etc., in order to reach what we want. So the infrastructure expansion was financed through internally generated revenue and partnership. As I told you, the government is only paying the personal enrollments, but no funds for expansion. So it means that it needed serious commitment in order to have used that internal generated fund for the development of the infrastructure. And the institutional strengthening, the workforce almost doubled from 200 staff to 400 staff when I left the CBE. So this achievement demonstrates that transformation is possible even within the resource-constrained environment. Financial sustainability is another challenge which is faced by CBE. So meeting the demand for expanding enrollment with limited resources. So tuition fee depends limited long-term financial sustainability. So it means that because we wanted to, we have many students, but we have limited infrastructure. We needed to train our staff. We needed to give some incentive to the staff. So we have that kind of a problem which we have to tackle all together. But just another is to balance the teaching and research. So staff will have a high and heavy teaching load. So with this heavy teaching load, it is difficult to spare time for research. So it means that it needs a lot of incentive to make people carry out research with the current heavy teaching load. Another thing which I've already talked is about governments and the bureaucracy which hinders the development. And another issue is about infrastructure lag. The increase in students did not go in tandem with the expansion of the infrastructure. As a result, we found that our classrooms were highly overloaded, and we have to find the neighborhood facilities in order to take our students. And right now, at the main campus, I know they've already gone back to Sabasaba because there is a very high increase of students, but limited infrastructure. Therefore, we need to invest a lot in the expansion of physical facilities to match the rapid enrollment growth. Another issue is about the retention of the talent. Sometimes you train your staff to the PhD level, but then they are transferred to another institution. You train this, themselves they get a better opportunity to better resource institution and they move out. So that is something which, as a leader, you feel bad that you've invested a lot to the PhD level to this, but also it's being taken to another institution. Though, what now are the lessons from CBE? The lesson from CBE on this kind of transformation. See, the first one is about visionary leadership matters. Visionary leadership matters. The setting of clear goals and mobilizing collective commitment is the key to success in any transformational program. So once we set our goal, we set our strategic plan, it means that all our budget should be according to our plan, and nothing will go out of that. There is only where we will be able to have that kind of transformation. And at the very beginning, the leader must have a vision. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve? At the end, at your tenure, at the end of your tenure, what do you want people to remember you that I was able to fulfill this and that? That is important to have a visionary leader. But the second one, investment in staff development is a key in transformation. So staff development is the single most effective driver of institutional transformation. Without investing a lot in staff development, CBE could be just as the other institution which are just investing a lot in teaching. But CBE did a lot of effort and set aside a budget for training the staff. So all this number for PhD which you have, majority of them, almost 80%, are funded by the internally generated fund from CBE. Few of them got some scholarship to study abroad, but the rest are financed by CBE. So investment in staff development yield long-term academic benefit. You can have very good infrastructure, you can have very good building, but if you don't have high caliber staff, then forget about transformation. So transformation must go in tandem with the staff development. Another lesson from this is that research is central. Without research culture, higher institution cannot meaningfully contribute to the national development. So it means that CB had good, well-trained staff, but they are not doing research. But if we want our presence to be recognized, is only when we carry out research. Yesterday in the opening session here, we heard about the DC said, right now at least you can see the research which are touching the problem of our Dodoma capital city. So it means that we are contributing something to the national, and the nation is recognized CBE because of it is research. So research culture must be nurtured systematically to enhance institutional reputation. Even the ranking, which we are rightly now enjoy that we are highly ranked, is because of the research and our research output. So it means that that is a key lesson that we have to support our staff to carry to research and to publish in high caliber journals, the Scopus, the best scores, etc. Then they will be able to recognize the nationally and internationally. But also infrastructure enables growth. Quality facilities inspires both staff and students to aim higher. Whenever we have good infrastructure, it helps also people to feel better, to be proud of their institution. So it means that we need also to make sure that our institutions are in good shape in order to be able to have that kind of positive mind among our staff and our students. Look even at the national level. If we have a tarmac road, even the housing around those tarmac road, they change their shape, they change the structure because of the infrastructure. So similarly, if you are in a very good office, you feel better, you can think better. But if you because of the infrastructure. Door to funding and opportunities. After opening our links with international universities, the UEF, the SUFE, and the other international universities, you can see that international collaboration helped us even to reach high-level journals, because publishing with international professors lets it to be in high area. But also collaboration with the government help us to have that kind of fund which we need from the government. So international bodies are vital for funding and knowledge exchange. Another lesson is adaptability, survival. In the face of limited resources, institutions must innovate teaching method, partnership, and resource mobilization to that kind of situation. For example, having this online master's program has increased a big number of students. It means that we've adapted that most of our master's students will not have sufficient time to come to the college. But open this online and blended mode, even we can go that to the undergraduate, have a blended mode, will increase our students, but within the current facilities, because we cannot bring all of them to the campus. We don't have sufficient facility for that. Then in stakeholder engagement also is essential. Government, industry, alumni, and the community must have a clear seat at the table. Conclusion. I want to say that the challenges are real but surmountable. Collective effort is needed to be able to overcome those challenges. Means that the government, academia, and the private sector, we need to go together. But with the right leadership, investment in human capital, and a strong commitment to research and innovation, African institutions can rise to the global standard while addressing local needs. Higher learning must be a beacon of hope for Africa's future. Thank you for listening. God bless Tanzania. God bless CBE. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Njema. Please, participants, again, big round of applause to Professor Njema. Yeah, thank you very much, Professor, for sharing your leadership experience. And actually, CBE remembers you in many aspects, remembers you in leadership aspect, that is visionary leadership, as you have said. We are, as CBE, we are at this status because of your vision. We thank you very much. But we remember you for staff development initiatives, but we remember you in your mentorship in research and consultants. We thank you very much. So, dear participants, we'll have another presenter. Then after, just if you have your question, if you want to have any clarification from the, you just say write your question to the link that you have been provided there. Now we go to another keynote speaker, and this is Dr. Bihan Tereda. Dr. Bihan Tereda is an accomplished academic and a researcher from Ethiopia, currently serving as a lecturer in the Department of Management at the College of Business and Economics, Wokiti University, one of the prominent public higher learning institutions in Ethiopia. His research primarily focuses on the fish value chain, with broader interests in agribusiness management, sustainable value chain, entrepreneurship development, and smallholder market linkage. Dr. Tereda scholarly works contribute to advancing knowledge on how local production systems can be optimized to enhance livelihoods and promote economic resilience in developing economies. Beyond teaching and research, Dr. Tereda has been actively engaged in community-based projects and academic collaboration that aim to strengthen the role of the universities in driving sustainable rural transformations. And this is a short biography of Dr. Binau Tereda. So I would like to welcome Dr. Binau Tereda to the podium for your speech. You're welcome. As he is approaching to the podium, a big round of applause.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, respected researcher and participants, it is both an honor and a privilege to address you at this important gathering, focus on a theme that speaks directly to our future shape, economic and business resilience for inclusive development. As he said, my name is Branu Tereda. I'm lecturer, researcher, and a dean of business and College of Business and Economics at Wokiti University, Ethiopia. So, my presentation title is Economic and Business Resilience for Inclusive Development. Specifically, I will share you some basic information related to this at Ethiopian context. So, as an introduction, in today's dynamic environment, many countries face those under the list of challenges. There is climate changes and technological advancement or disruption, global pandemics, armed conflict, and widening social and economic inequalities. Those are the major challenges we may face at large. So in this context, resilience is no longer optional, it's essential. Today, I will explore how Ethiopia can build economic and business resilience that's not only sustainable, but also inclusive, ensuring no one is left behind in our journey toward development. First, it's better to give some clue regarding to those three terminologies, what it means economic resilience, business resilience, and inclusive development. Economic resilience means that it's the ability of national economy to anticipate, absorb, and recover from shocks while maintaining a long-term growth and development. This is the conceptual meaning of economic resilience. And business resilience means that it refers to how enterprises from small vendors to large corporations disruption while sustaining operation and employment. The other key term is what inclusive development means, that the growth that benefit all segments of the society, including those marginal to resource, opportunity, service, and voice or influences. So those are the conceptual meaning of what it means: business resilience, economics resilience, and inclusive development. Because this is our key terms we need to consider. Ladies and gentlemen, why this theme matters in Ethiopia context. Let me begin by contextualizing this theme in Ethiopia current reality. In recent years, Ethiopia, like many nations, has faced such significant disruptions like emergency of COVID, pandemic, exposed health system, vulnerabilities, and disrupted supply chains, and the occurrence of internal conflicts strained our economy, displaced community, and deepened inequalities. And the third major disruption is global shocks, such as inflation, rising fuel and food prices, and geopolitical tension have tested our macroeconomic stability. And the other one is climate-related disasters, including recurring droughts and floods, have severely impacted agricultural productivity and rural livelihood. So this is, resilience is an urgent issue within our Ethiopian context. Why we consider or why we need to address such basic issue specifically in Ethiopian context. Despite these challenges, Ethiopia has shown remarkable resiliences, just like the government exerts its maximum efforts to stabilize the macroeconomy, and the government also pursues structural transformation by just like agro-industrialization, infrastructure expansion, rural to urban connectivity, and it can invest huge money on digitalization. However, the road recovered basic clue. The first reason is over 70% of our population is under 30. Due to this, if our youth are not economically included, and the democratic dividend turns into what? A demographic burden. Many Ethiopians, approximately 80% of Ethiopian population, live in a rural area. The livelihoods depend heavily on agriculture, and thus are exposed to climate and market risks. And the third reason is women and girls, particularly in rural area, face systematic barriers to economic participation from lack of land rights to limited financial access. And the first one is those informal sectors which sustain millions is often excluded from formal support mechanisms, finance, and protection. This issue reinforces the urgency of building resiliency through proactive, inclusive, and evidence-based approach. So, what are the strategy we need to adopt? The Ethiopian government is better to adopt those strategies in order to build resilient economic and business development. At the first focal area is at the macro or national levels, the government is better to adopt such basic strategy. The first one is strengthen infrastructure and connectivity, because we do have some gap at these parts, so we need to exert our maximum effort on those parts. So invest in climate resilient physical infrastructure, just like road, bridge, energy, water, and digital connectivity to enable business and rural communities to access markets, services, and information. The second strategy, it should be considered to promote inclusive finance and private sector development, because there is some informal sectors which is, it needs support. So expand, how can we support those informal sectors? By providing or arranging finance, just like credit, insurance, risk mitigation tools for micro and small and medium enterprises, especially those led by women, youths, and displaced persons. The third, at macro level, the government is better to consider as a strategy, strengthen institutions and governments by building institutions that are accountable, transparent, and adaptability. The second, the strategy, that means the way of implementing such strategies, prioritize local ownership and homegrown solutions. So by applying such strategy, just is possible to fix such problems. And the fourth one is promote sustainability and climate smart development by building adaptive capacity in agriculture and rural sectors, just like climate smart agriculture, diversified livelihoods, and integrate business resiliency into these sectors. The fifth strategy, or another strategy, enhance connectivity to the global and regional markets by boosting trade facilitation, logistic, value chain participation, diversification of export markets. This will enhance business resiliency by reducing dependency on a limited set of market or products. The sixth strategy, or another strategy, peace, security, and national unity. Without peace, resiliency is impossible. So we need to build inclusive political institutions, social cohesion, and a culture of dialogue and reconciliation. So by doing this, it's possible to fix such a gap. At the micro levels, it's better to adapt or just consider such basic strategy. The first strategy, diversification and adaptability. As we know, most of those micro and small business enterprise mainly focus on its one type of product, so it's better to diversify its products for the purpose of minimizing its risks. So encourage business to diversify products, service, market, and supply chain to spread risks. And the second strategy is access to finance and risk mitigation instruments, because those especially micro and small enterprise vulnerable such type of problems. So we should arrange such facility for such institutions just by providing or by arranging working capital, insurance, credit line, or alternative financing and business development service. Just it's better to upgrade or enhance their capability by providing training on different contemporary issues. Just it's possible to increase their competitiveness. And the third strategy is digitalization and innovation. You know that our environment is, or especially technology is advanced very fast, or dynamically changed. So due to this, it's better to exert our maximum effort on this part also. Take advantage of digital technology to reduce costs, reach markets, improve operation, and adapt business model. Because especially those marginalized group or small and micro and small enterprise can face such challenges because they have limited market access. So in order to reach or in order to promote their product and service to the target customers, just it's better to support their way of promotion by such technology. The last one is, the fourth one is linkage to value chain and market. Mean that, as I've said before, those small, micro and small enterprise can have such limitation. So in order to fix or fill such gap, just it's better to arrange markets linkage for those institutions. So as an academician, what must we do now? Because as I've mentioned, there is certain gaps and I propose a certain strategy. So now, as an academician, what must we do now? First, it's better to provide evidence-based policy recommendation to the different target groups, just like government, private sector, and the likes. As an academician, it's better to play such basic roles. And the other one is, as an academician, it's better to conduct community-centered research on local challenges, and certainly facilitate stakeholder collaboration. Collaboration is very better to work together for the purpose of filling such major gaps. Fourth, build capacity in resiliency, innovation, and sustainability. Mean that in order to fill the gap of those small and micro enterprise, just it's better to provide different trainings, capacity building trainings. In such, it's possible to fix or fill the gap. And just academic institutions, just like Olkita University, must serve as a hub for applied research, knowledge sharing, and leadership development. As closing remarks, ladies and gentlemen, in my final remark, let me remind us, resilience is not about bouncing back. It's what? It's about bouncing forward. As we deliberate throughout this conference, I urge all of us to transform knowledge into action, build stronger, more inclusive institutions, empower the private sector and marginalized groups, invest in innovation, partnership, and human capital. So this conference should not end with discussion alone. Let's serve as a platform for commitment, collaboration, and concrete solution. That's what we have here, what we have been here. No single actors like government, academic, or business can achieve resilience in isolation. It's only through collective efforts that will build a nation that is not only stronger, but also more just and inclusive. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish for a fruitful and impactful conference. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Troy. Very nice presentation. And actually, your participation on BEDIC 25 shows very high commitment in knowledge sharing that fosters discussion and dialogue on issues of business, issues of sustainable development. So we really appreciate your participation. Dear participants, you have to reserve your questions. If you have questions, you have any comments, anything you want, clarification, or just appraising, you have to write on the link that is displayed. Technical team, can you display the link? So, dear participants, address your question through that link. Address your question through that link. I would like now to welcome the third presenter. And this is Dr. Donath Oromi. Dr. Donath Oromi is the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Management and Entrepreneurship Development, IMED, a leading Tanzanian institution pioneering innovative approaches in entrepreneurship and management. A Master of Business Administration, MBA, a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD in Business and Entrepreneurship, having studied in Tanzania, Canada, and Sweden. Before joining academia in 1989, he gained practical experience as an assistant accountant and later as an export officer, grounding his academic pursuits in real-world business experience. Dr. Oromi's main area of expertise is entrepreneurship and small business development, where he has made sustainable contributions through research, teaching, and advisory engagement across Africa. He was the founding director of the University of Dar es Salaam Entrepreneurship Center, that is UDEC, in 1999, serving until 2009. Under his visionary leadership, UDEC became a regional leader in entrepreneurship promotion, training, and enterprise development within East Africa. Beyond academia, Dr. Oromi is a successful entrepreneur and an institutional leader. This is a short biography of Dr. Oromi. I would like to welcome Dr. Oromi to the podium. A big round of applause to Dr. Oromi.
Thank you very much, Chairman of the Board of CBE, the leadership, my fellow speakers and participants, good morning. MC, with your permission, because I know our attention span tends to be very short. So with your permission, I will spend half a minute of my time to do a little energizer. If you don't mind, please, raising, standing up. Okay. So raise your left hand as much as you can, as much as you can, as much as you can, and then the right hand, as much as you can, as much as you can, as much as you can. Now you land your right hand on your chest. Haraka. Why did most of you land their hands on their face? Yeah, you can sit down. There is only one reason. Because you did what I did, what I said. So actions speak louder than words. And people will learn more from what you do than what you say. So this morning, I'm very pleased to be with you to share some thoughts on building entrepreneurial capacities and institutions as foundations for sustainable development. Have been introduced. So we know, and Professor Mjema has talked about the big challenges that we are facing, including a big challenge around youth in a context where we are increasing the number of graduates, in a context where technology is also taking away some of the jobs, and we have people talk about Gen Z, but we have other generations coming. We don't know how complex they will be. And this is something we need to start talking about and finding ways to deal with them, with the new generation. So there are many challenges, and we need to address them in order to grow the economy, to become sustainable, but also to create a peaceful, harmonious society. In the past, peace and stability was not an issue in our country, but now it is becoming an issue. So in summary, policymakers, educators, implementers, institutional governance mechanism, we cannot continue doing business as usual. We have to learn to do business unusual. And that is the subject of my presentation this morning. So we'll reflect on the foundations of transformation and development, and also reflect on what needs to be done to strengthen these foundations. Now, when we look at development, often we talk about infrastructure, or finance, technology adoption, industrialization, as basis for development. But actually, there are underlying factors that we need to be very much conscious of, and that we need to invest in developing. Because these are the foundations. Without these, you cannot achieve anything. And I want to emphasize today on the need to reflect, to understand, to reflect, and build the foundations for development, which of course include quality education and training, but also governance, quality, institutions, accountability, innovation, entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial capabilities, where I work a lot and where I will focus most in this presentation. Political stability, we talk about visionary leadership, social cohesion. These are foundations of development. And we need to all the time think about building these foundations so that the middle level can be strengthened and eventually we can achieve the development that we want to see. Now, many have heard of this statement. Upon gaining independence in 1961, Tanzania was at the same level of development as Malaysia and South Korea. How many of you have heard of this statement? Almost all of us. How many of us believe that it is true? Almost a third of us. So I would like to argue that this statement is not true because it focuses on numbers. It is true that upon independence, Tanzania and many other sub-Saharan countries had the same level of development in terms of per capita income with Malaysia and Korea. But the foundations of development were not the same. But also, Tanzania, the countries have invested a lot more in building the foundations of development than we have done. So if you look at the numbers, you know, this is the comparison of education, literacy, education, and attainment between Korea and Tanzania in 1961. We were a lot behind in terms of education, in terms of literacy, vocational training, in terms of skills, in terms of, but also in terms of being a nation. You know, it is only in 1961 that we started building Tanzania as one nation. Before that, it was 120 chiefdoms. So how do you do that? It's a long journey. And what was done in Tanzania, the first thing was to destroy the indigenous institutions of governance. Some of the economic institutions like cooperatives, like local government, like in order to build a nation, that was a very expensive process. And in a way, we are still doing that because we have to create a nation out of 120. But also you can talk of culture. We did not have a harmonious culture. We can talk of the work ethic. We can talk of the education system, the infrastructure. We are not at the same level of development. And we often make a lot of general statements like this, and then eventually we say, somebody bewitched us. Why have we remained behind? But we have to focus on the reasons, and this is why I say this is a critical perspective. We need to look at statement and information and data critically, not just take them face value. So, what is needed for us to develop, to address the challenges that we are facing today, to advance as a nation? There is something called 21st century skills, and many of us are in education. So I hope we are aware of the 21st century skills that we need to develop, not only through education, but also through all kinds of nurturing, capacity building, mentorship, and all of those. So learning agility is probably number one. The ability to learn not only from books and AI and whatever, but also to learn from action, which I believe is one of the areas that we are not very strong in. Learning from what we are doing, the achievements, the challenges we are facing. And learning agility means learning proactively, intentionally, which is also, we tend to learn more to get certificates, which is a big issue. So this is one key area of development: critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation, ability to build networks, to collaborate, to work together, to work in teams. Communication is a big issue. We often do these things, and we mention communication is a broad thing, but it has many dimensions, starting from confidence, but also mastery of languages. And we understand we have a big challenge with mastery of languages in this country. You go to America, if your English is not good, you have to take English courses. So why are you not doing that here, for example? We need to provide English courses even at university for people to improve their mastery of English, or Kiswahili if they are weak in Kiswahili. So communicate. There has to be a vibrant ecosystem. The laws, the regulations, the various institutions, the culture has to be supportive to innovation endeavors. Now I want to talk about being an entrepreneur. What does that mean? This is the definition I have. It is the first person who came up with this definition, or the entrepreneurial institution. It is an institution that on its own seeks to innovate in how it approaches its core business, regardless of its business, whether it is actually doing business, or it is a university, or it is an NGO, or it is a government department, it is a government agency. It innovates in how it approaches its core business, whether that business is teaching, research, public service, policy making, and it seeks to work out its censorship in organizational character, so to arrive at a more promising posture for the future. And I'm glad this morning a very good example of a leader who has led an organization entrepreneurially. So the story of CBE and how it just transformed reflects this character. So congratulations, Professor Jema, for being a very good example of an entrepreneurial leader. And I have to emphasize it is pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources controlled. That's why in the story of CBE transformation, you can also see that in other organizations. transformed for about 15 years, you will hear innovative and transforming. So challenges are there, but they do not necessarily become a limit to innovation. They can limit the extent to which you can achieve results, but not the ability to make a difference. So what ideally we should have, we need to have enterprising individuals. And these are people who are ambitious, they set goals. They are always seeking growth for themselves, but also for whatever they are leading. They foster a culture of innovation in themselves, they seek and exploit opportunities, including within organizations. Opportunities are not only outside, including opportunities within organization. They are creative, push innovative ideas into solutions, they take risks, they take ownership. They do whatever they are doing as if it was their own. So if you look at what has happened at CBE, the leader or the leaders, normally you have a team of people doing that, they take that as their business, not the business of the government or the business of the student. And then they persist through setback. They use available resources and networks. They mobilize the resources creatively. But they start with what is there. They start with what is possible. They don't complain that there are no resources. They say, yes, we have challenges of resources, but what do we have? Where can we start? What can we get? And that's where they start. So you need people like this. The education system has to contribute to building these people like this. And it's not just the education system. It is also the families. It is also the religious organizations. It is also all the contexts where people are nurtured. First of all, education institutions have to set learning and innovation as priority learning outcomes. So innovation, producing innovative individuals, entrepreneurial people, has to be a key learning outcome, regardless of what you are teaching. And then you provide an ecosystem that supports learning, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Now, and then you have leaders. They take leadership of the transformation. They foster culture of innovation in the organization. They serve as role models. They serve as examples. That's why I told you that actions are more powerful than words. It's not just about teaching or preaching. It is about showing the example. They mobilize the resources, they communicate the vision. And then you need a supportive organization setting, which provides flexible structures, processes, and incentives that facilitate entrepreneurial action. You have to encourage cross-functional communication, collaboration, also allocate time, funding, and mission to new initiatives, ensuring that both autonomy and support for innovators, providing autonomy and support for innovators. So our organizations, our ministries, our laws, our government, our management of the training institutions, of our companies, of our NGOs, of our hubs, whatever you are doing, the organization has to provide the environment. For an enterprising person, they don't say the environment is not provided, so I cannot do anything. That is not being enterprise. Or enterprising leaders cannot say the environment is not enabling, I cannot do anything. That is not being enterprise, right? So this is the kind of environment that we need to drive the transformation we need to move this country ahead to be in the same league as our the Asian tigers. And that potential is there, that possibility is there. We have a lot of talent in this country. We have smart people. We just need to promote this kind of environment. And things will happen. So there are barriers that we need to address to get there. The barriers mostly will be at the institutional level now. So whether you are a head of department, dean of a faculty, CEO, chairman of a board, position of leadership you have to make yourself a MY. If you are a minister, if you are a ministry, if you are a regulator, MY providing these barriers. MY the source of these barriers. Which barriers should we be removing? One of them is our power distance. Our culture is characterized by very big, high power distance. So the boss is the boss, and the subordinate is subordinate, and they don't meet, and they cannot joke, they cannot. So that is a very negative force in the process of what people being entrepreneurial. And that comes with the fear of challenging the status quo, because change means you are challenging the status quo, whether it is positive or negative. Lack of openness, it comes with lack of accountability. So nobody asks questions, nobody can challenge the leader. That is really bad. We need to deal with that. And that is connected to rigid hierarchies, multiple layers of approval, bureaucracy, and red tape. That is also a serious barrier, and it is very typical in government institutions. Now, first is what has happened is, in many cases, the leaders and the systems, such as in the private institutions, have been copied from the public institutions. So sometimes you may not see significant difference in rigidity, in hierarchy, in power distance. It is the same culture that has been transferred to the private institutions. Lack of autonomy, ability to make decisions quickly. People don't want to delegate, and people cannot become innovative in that environment. Lack of leadership. Sometimes you have people being appointed to leadership positions who do not have the drive, the initiative, the demonstrated potential to become entrepreneurial leaders. And I think when we are appointing, whoever we are appointing to any position, one of the qualities we have to look at is does this person demonstrate elements of being entrepreneurial, at whatever level. And the only way you can tell is from someone's background. How has this person behaved? Even as a teacher, because as a teacher, you can demonstrate innovation, commitment, and so this is very key. Lack of systems that encourage and support innovators, incentives, resources. So if you are very innovative, you bring a lot of change. Let's say in a university, does that give you a promotion? Maybe not. I don't know nowadays, because I left a long time ago. So how can we build incentives for people to become innovative and entrepreneurial within the system? Mobility of innovators, one of the challenges in our environment. If you are visible, you are innovative, you become visible, and then you are transferred from this department to that institution, to the government, and eventually you may not even have much impact. So mobility of innovators is one of the challenges. And then there is a misguided belief that change must come from above. So everybody thinks the boss, the ministry, the head of the department, or the director, or the rector, or the vice chancellor has to initiate change. Change has to come from multiple sources, from all the sources. And change does not have to be big. Small changes make a difference, eventually become quite significant. So a misguided belief that change must entail large, or innovation must entail large changes, and therefore people don't innovate incrementally through small changes. There is also a narrow view of learning, focusing on received view. Actually, nowadays, there is very little generation of new thinking, new ideas, new concepts. People will recycle existing knowledge from publications, from AI, but there is no process, there is not much investment in the process of generating new thoughts and new ideas through brainstorming, through debates, through original research, qualitative research. So this is something we need to address. There is also conservatism and resistance to change, fear of failure. This is also attributed to the fact that when you make a mistake, you are blamed. But entrepreneurship is about trying, experimenting, making mistakes and learning from them. So we have to allow people to make mistakes to a certain degree, as long as we're learning from them. There is also fear of innovators or entrepreneurial individuals, corruption, also and vested interest. So you look at these things, they are the main barriers to getting here. And we need to address them systematically in our organizations. And we need also to research them. Now, I want to end my discussion with a focus on the kind of business I've been involved in. I've been working mostly on developing entrepreneurship, curriculum, guidelines, supporting trainers, consultants, but also business incubators, hubs, innovation centers in multiple institutions and countries. And I want to look at how entrepreneurial these units are. Because they are supporting entrepreneurs, they have to be an example of entrepreneurship. And they have to address the challenges that we talk about. Because if you look at many of these hubs, what is happening? Hubs, enterprise development organizations in various institutions, you'll find that most of them are not active. They only provide resources if they have a donor or there's money from the government. And they are not connected to the ecosystem. And therefore, they have very limited impact. And sometimes they are up when a certain leader is there. When he's not there, they are down. So, but there are a few which are doing well. So I want to reflect a little bit on what is the issue and what we can do about them. And part of the issue is the environment in which they operate. Yeah? The environment in which they operate. Because it's the environment that determines, first of all, who is placed in that organization and what resources are they given, even their own time. Because in a lot of institutions, you find an enterprise development organization is there. It is managed by a lecturer who is extremely busy with the research, with teaching, with marking, with administration, and then they are also expected to drive results in that unit. And also, sometimes they just pick anybody. Not everybody can run a hub successfully because it has certain requirements. So you have to match. But also, the question of flexibility. I talked about these barriers here. Lack of autonomy. Lack of financial autonomy. If you get funds, they have to go through the government to the treasury, and then you have to ask these funds back again. All these are serious barriers to the development of successful hubs. But what is interesting is that we have some hubs which are doing fairly well. And we need to learn from them. When we say we need to learn from action, learn from others, it is also learning from our own environment. Who is doing a good job? What is different about them? And what can we copy, etc. So, for example, at COSTECH, there is something called TDBI. It was started with funding from the World Bank, but it is sustained. Sokoine University, they have a very interesting model because the university itself, because there is a cooperative called Sugeko, and it's the one which acts as the hub for the university. But the cooperative is not owned by the university, but it sits in the university. And it benefits from the resources of the university, including the lecturers' expertise, including land, including a lot of things. So it's a very interesting model, which I expect that other institutions might also consider learning from it. But there are other emerging experiences. For example, in Zanzibar, there is Zanzibar Economic Empowerment Agency. They are developing PPP with the private sector. It's a hub, they have a hub there. Also, forestry and wood industry training center in Mafinga. They are exploring this option. And also Institute of Marine Sciences in Zanzibar. SIDO has developed an interesting arrangement with private companies to work with the regional offices through some kind of PPP. But I think this is facing challenges because it is still, you still have to work through the government system, which has all these requirements for handling money. So what is happening is that these institutions are doing institutional innovations to counter, what is the right word? Not to avoid, but to circumvent the challenges of bureaucratic institutions. And I think to some degree, it's working out. So COSTECH has established a company limited by guarantee. That is the one that runs the DTBI. So has SUGECO. This forestry is also planning to set up, they have already actually created that company. SIDO is working through this PPP. But the whole idea is to circumvent the bureaucratic system which does not provide the economy for these hubs to have impact, to hire the right people, to set them, to motivate them, to fire them, to hold them accountable, because the accountability culture and the accountability system within the existing institution is not strong enough to mobilize resources from multiple sources. So you look at SUGECO, they are working with a lot of partners. They can charge for their services. They have developed some very interesting revenue streams to sustain the center, but also to have impact. Similarly, DTBI is working with a lot of partners because they have the freedom and they can ring fence the financial resources for the unit. So basically, the message this morning is we need to invest in building this, and ideally, we should have our institutions working entrepreneurially and flexibly to achieve goals. But in the meantime, it's not a bad idea to adopt innovation that enable us to achieve results that contribute to developing entrepreneurship, innovation, and sustainable development.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lom, for a very nice presentation. Actually, he draws a practical experience from what he does. And Dr. Lomi, many academicians would like to be entrepreneurs. However, they are full of fear. We think through your presentation, we encourage them to take initiatives. So we thank you very much for sharing your practical experiences on entrepreneurship. And we expect to see questions on that area so that we can take initiatives to entrepreneurship, institutional entrepreneurship, and individual entrepreneurship. Dear participants, now we have 3 presentations. We expected to have one more presentation that was online presentation from Dr. Glashan Chimwaza. However, he is not in the position to participate. So we'll just have these 3 presentations, and our discussion will be based on these 3 presentations. So I would like the technical team to display that link so that participants can write your questions, and we go direct to the discussions based on the 3 presentations. So I would like to welcome the participants for questions. Yeah. Okay. I'm advised to take the questions from the link that have been displayed. And these are the questions. One to Dr. Olomi. Yeah. One to Professor Mjema. Why transportation in other TVET institutions become difficult and impossible? What should be done? Do you see any strategic transformative in existing higher learning institution in Tanzania? Another also goes to Professor Mjema. What are the possible plans to minimize talented staff mobility to other institutions? All right, Professor Mjema, can you respond to some of these questions?
Okay, thank you for those questions. The first one, Professor Mjema, why transportation? I think you wanted to say transformation, and not transformation in other TVET institution become difficult and impossible. What should be done? The first thing is leadership. To be able to have any kind of transformation, it needs commitment of somebody who is at the top. If the person at the top is not committed to transformation, forget about transformation. Then you need also to have supportive staff who are going to buy your idea. You know, myself when I was a leader, I was not the one who was doing, but I was saying something and others will implement. So if you don't have good supportive staff, then transformation is not possible. That's why I said that development of human capital was one of the most important key in transformation. Because I was telling them my position, look, as a professor, I cannot discuss with you. So I needed to raise these people to a certain level. Then at that level could be speaking the same language. So it means that there is a need strategic goal which you have. So it means that, well, you need visionary leader, but it must be all supported with talented staff. So it means that what should be done? You as the leader who is visionary, find somebody who supports you, who are also intellectual even more than you, because at the end, all the processes are coming to you despite that the other people who are doing. So the good leader is using other people to achieve the result. That is, must be done. The second, do you see any strategic transformative in existing higher learning institution in Tanzania? Yeah, there are a number of them which are also carrying out transformation and internationalization and also the training. Previously, small, this middle institution, they were not doing researches and conferences. But what you see right now, CBE is doing conferences, TIA is carrying conferences, IFM is also doing conferences, even the Institute for Rural Development, so they are doing that. So it means that people are changing from being special high school to become really high learning institution. And some of the universities are also doing that. It means that they need a commitment. The other than, what are the possible plans to minimize talented staff mobility to other institutions? Mobility, firstly, is an individual. What do they say? Why are they moving? So it means that others are moving because they are going to a green pasture. I remember one of my staff completed immediately his PhD, and within a year got another job to a particular institution where they were paying almost 10 million per month. Then myself, I said, okay, I cannot stop this from moving, despite he was still in the bond. But I released him to go because I don't want to become a witch. That this person has got a very big opportunity. Why should I stop him from going to that particular opportunity? So I let him go. And he went to that particular institution. And it is good that we have some people in other different institutions. So to move is not that bad. But why are they moving? Then if there is anything which you can do is first to improve the work environment, improve the incentive, but improve personal relation. You know, sometimes people, they don't move just because of the personal relation and the attachment which they have with the institution. Not only the financing or the salary they get, but what kind of relation they have with that particular institution. Thank you for those questions. Sorry, the other one. How can sub-Saharan African universities move beyond inherited academic models and the global marketing pressure to build an intellectual order that unites global excellence with indigenous wisdom and social transformation? Here I said that first, let's look what are our local needs. So it means that our research should be applied researches which are solving local needs, but then our publication become at the international level. So you don't have to copy any other international university, but our own. That's why we need to publish it to higher level journals, but practical solution to our local needs. The universities all over the world try to solve local problems. So our universities should, I encourage not to do abstract researches which do not solve local problems. So let's make sure that our researches are aimed at solving local problems. The other one, how does digital transformation affecting business operations? Digital transformation means that we are trying to see the way how to improve business operation through digital transformation. For those who remember, what I did immediately is to, especially in the finance area, the DF office, to change everything digital. Previously, there were cash office. People were being paid weekly cash money. But that was the source of where people could manipulate and steal institutional money. So I said all the money must be paid through somebody's account. I think CBE was the first one to link the student account with the banks. That the student, whenever they pay there, then that one should link to the student account. Then from there, it is when the student can be able to access his account. And with that, we were able to see the money. So it means that digital transformation, and we used our own people to build those interfaces between the bank and the CBE account system. And with that one, it improved a lot of our operations. Instead of going to paperwork, a lot of things then went on the digital. And even when the government now forced it to this eager system, CBE had already implemented a lot of this digital transformation, which helped us to see our money, where it's going, and we were able to make a lot of saving, which helped us to build our infrastructure. Kuna nyingine? Okay, thank you for this question. Be blessed.
Big round of applause to Professor Mjema. Thank you very much, Professor, for the response of those questions, and I hope that all questions have been responded. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Tereda to respond to some of the questions raised.
Okay. I think it's All right. I think the first question is, how can the academic institution like CBE collaborate with yours in this area? So, of course, as an institution, we are ready to work together on this basic area at the part of research and also student exchange and also staff exchange and the likes. On those areas, it's possible to cooperate with College of Business Education of Tanzania. So this is the way we cooperate with your respected institutes. What is the other question? There any question, Azar? I think yeah. All right. The other question is how Ethiopian economy is unique for other African countries. I think economic is dynamic. Of course, we have some unique features, especially producing different types of products, which is produced only within Ethiopia. And also, our government try to work hard in these parts to include the marginalized groups to get some advancement on those economic area. So I think we don't have that much unique features as compared with other African countries. But currently our country is the fast economic growing country in the world. So we are the same features. That much has no unique as compared with African's country. The other one is comments on social economic inequality among Ethiopia. Of course, there is some marginalized groups. It needs more supports, especially those youth, women, and also displaced peoples. So those displaced and youth and also women, it needs more supporters just by arranging different facilities, just like credit services. That means, and also it's better to provide training for the purpose of increasing their capacities. So by increasing their capacity, just it's possible to fill such gap. Another question is, what are Ethiopian economic, political, and technological contribution to other Africa countries give its membership to the BRICS Alliance? Of course, as I've said before, Ethiopia more exert its efforts on building economic resilience and development by including those marginalized groups. So we may have such multilateral agreements for those BRICS alliances. So we cooperate such groups for the purpose of filling our gaps at the part of those areas. Just like, that we are economically fast-growing country. Why? Because our government can exert its maximum effort on this area, and also we try to stabilize the political tensions, and by dealing with our neighbors in a peaceful ways. So those are a model we need to consider, and also as an it's a model we need to consider about our situation, our countries. The other ones, despite good economic growth in Ethiopia, why many Ethiopians run away from country? We have seen several Ethiopians go illegally to South Africa through Tanzania. Yeah, of course, migration is most of our users can go away from our country because of some issue which is found within our country, just like instability, as I've said before, and also there is some those marginalized groups can exclude supporters by governments. Due to this, for betterment, our users and our users can go around the world, especially these Africa countries, for the purpose of better economic growth. But currently, our government can strive, work hard to create or build economic and social resiliency in this area. We hope we will fix this problem in the near future. Any other question? I think this is all about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tareda, for the response of your questions, and I hope that you have addressed all of the questions. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Olomi to respond to the raised questions.
Thank you very much for the questions. I think the first one is, how can institutions like CBE collaborate with IMED? I think it's quite possible. We are already collaborating, for example, with IMF, Institute of Finance Management, and we are open for collaboration. And our collaboration with IMF is project-based. So if there is an opportunity, first of all, we have an MOU of collaboration. And when there is an opportunity, we team up together, for example, to apply for a consultancy or a project and implement. Worked on a 2-year project, and we are currently working on another proposal. So it is possible to collaborate, and I believe you have what is needed for us to collaborate. The only thing is, as a private company, we are very conscious with cost, and our biggest cost is time. So in the past, we tried to collaborate with another institution, not CBE. And then you go, they ask for a meeting, you go to a meeting, and people are late. Sometimes the meeting is postponed. For us, it is not possible to sustain that kind of arrangement because every minute for us matters. So collaboration is quite possible. You are welcome. We can actually work together. To what extent have entrepreneurial mindset changed over the years? This is a very good question. And from around 2004, we used to conduct annual surveys of entrepreneurial inclinations of students. So we would pick some schools, some primary schools, secondary schools, colleges, universities, vocational centers, technical training colleges, and then we'll do a survey of the final year students. And then we are already comparing from year to year. But unfortunately, we are not able to sustain that after I left the university. But this is something which could be continued, and it is very easy to do. And it can, actually we are doing most of it were master's student projects that we were supervising. And one of the colleges we did is CBE. So there is actually an MBA research report by, I don't remember the name, on CBE final year students entrepreneurial inclination. So this, you can continue this practice. So because we did not continue, I cannot say, I don't have data. But from anecdotally, from anecdotes, I can say the entrepreneurial mindset has been improving. From the young people I meet, from the institutions that we see working now, from the hubs that are coming up, from the businesses that young people are developing, I feel that there is a significant improvement compared, for example, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Now, when you talk of, so let me end there. But you have the very good opportunity to do this research. The other research we did, which you can do very easily, is tracer studies. With telephone, with almost every student having a telephone, you can very easily do a tracer study through telephone interview. So we did one in 2010, and we were able to get 75% response rate of graduates who had graduated 2 years back. And this can also be a student project. Just need a good supervisor to guide the student, and you can do that every year at very little cost, or almost no cost, because all this research is already funded. The other question is, how can academic staff be entrepreneurial? Now, entrepreneurial, I don't know exactly what you are, because when you talk about entrepreneurship, it can take place in different contexts. So we have business entrepreneurship, creating and running a business. You see an opportunity, you exploit the opportunity profitably. This is business entrepreneurship. But there is intrapreneurship, where you behave entrepreneurially within an existing organization. You behave entrepreneurially on the work you are doing as a lecturer, as a head of department, as a rector, like Professor Mjema did, as in your position as a minister, as a regional commissioner, as a priest, as a whatever you are doing. You do it entrepreneurially, creatively. You make a difference, you transform. And that is also called corporate entrepreneurship. It can also be within an existing company. And then there is social entrepreneurship. The ambition, the risk-taking, all of these are involved, depending on which of these you are doing. So a lecturer can be very entrepreneurial in the way he teaches, in the way he makes a difference. You can create, you can be very innovative in how you teach or how you facilitate learning, because teaching is not quite the right word. You can be very entrepreneurial in terms of how you manage a project, how you manage your department, how you manage your school or college or institution. So now the question is, how can academic staff be entrepreneurial? So it depends on which context. But how you can be entrepreneurial, if you understand what it means, you just have to decide to be entrepreneurial and be entrepreneurial. You know, there is somebody went to a priest and said, I no longer love my wife, I want to divorce her. So advise me. So the priest said, yeah, okay, I have very good advice for you. What is the advice? He said, go and love her. I don't love her. I said, go and love her. So you want to keep the marriage? Go and love her. You want to be entrepreneurial? Be entrepreneurial. What does that mean? You have to think a little bit different. You have to know that what you are doing now is not the best. You can do better. What you are used to doing is not the only way you can do it. So find ways of doing things differently, better, adding value, making a difference. Also take some risks, calculated risks, because whatever change you want to do, there will be resistance and some risk is involved. So be prepared to take those risks, but also calculate the risk, find ways of managing the risks, and so forth. So for every attribute, do it, do it, do it. If it's business, business has two aspects. There is the entrepreneurial mindset and business skills. For me, the business skills is the icing on the cake. What is most crucial is the entrepreneurial ability. That is why you find people who have not been to school, they are very successful in business, they can be very successful transformation, transformative leaders. You find somebody who was from Fall very successful as a leader, as a businessman, because they may not have the theoretical knowledge and skills training, but they have the foundation. So you need to cultivate the foundation and build the habit of being entrepreneurial. And then, if you want to run a business, also learn some business skills. And all of this requires investment in learning, which we have sometimes become quite weak in learning. We need to invest in learning, read, consult, find mentors, consult. One of the companies I sit on the board, the owner, he has a learning agenda. Every quarter he has to read one book. Every quarter. And this has been for the past 15 years. Every quarter he has to meet somebody who can enrich him. So he'll invite you for lunch or dinner and have just a discussion, you know, and several other things they do. So you have to have intentional learning as intentional, learning from action, learning from various sources, from mentors, and then you will find yourself growing and being able to make it. And the good thing is there is no limit. You might not be very entrepreneurial, but you can also be zero. You cannot be zero. So you are entrepreneurial to some degree. You just need to build on that. If you are at 25, you can go to 50, 70. If you are at 70, you can go up. You just need to invest in learning and challenging yourself and following the guidelines for being entrepreneurial. Is there another question? Or was that the last? They must have, there is a question there. Can you go back? Access to finance. Entrepreneurs must have access to financial support systems. The banks are charging high interest. They gain a lot living poor. I think access to finance is a big challenge. And if you do a survey, 70% or more of even people who are in business, they will tell you this is problem number one. But it is often overemphasized, because if you have the ability and readiness to get finance, you are more likely to get finance. And also the financial landscape is evolving. This year, we have done a study of financial services that are available to youth, women, and micro small business. And I was very surprised that a lot of the banks, they have products that have been designed to be accessible to that level, with 70% guarantee, with insurance built into the process, with capacity built incorporated into the financing. So TADB, they have a big fund which they have used as guarantee for the other banks. They have now 19 banks to offer products that are accessible to this group. So we call it blended finance, which is designed for these groups. And this is just TADB, NMB. They have a partnership with financial development institutions, which have invested in the institution to enable them to save this space, to support some of the risk. There is a lot now on offer, but a lot of people are not aware. And I think the financial institutions are still adjusting to be able to offer these services at scale, because it's also not easy. They are used to straight lending. Now they have to do blended finance. And also there are risks. For example, they will not tell you there is guarantee, because if they announce there is guarantee, people don't repay. So that is another problem. That's why they are not advertising this process, because they'll create finance. So the environment is difficult, but it is improving. But also, you need to be ready for external finance. And to be ready for external finance means you need to understand your business, you need to understand your market, you need to have a good organization, you have to have some skills, you need to have a simple plan. You need to have a track record history of what you have done, what you have sold, if you have bank money, but a track record. We have borrowed money from the mobile money companies. We don't. Some of us have borrowed money from banks, from circles, and now we have credit. This information is there. So we need to build also a track record of so that we can be trusted. The problem is big, but it is being addressed. And people, often, normally, you will not be able to start a business with a loan, which carries interest. Because, first of all, it is very, secondly, it is short-term. And you need to, it does not provide you the space to do the business. So you need to find other ways to start the first step. Right now, there are some products for first-timers, which are piloted, including by TADB, by SRDB, in Beju, and so forth. So this is piloting. And in some subsectors, for example, cage fishing, seems to be working. But traditionally, it is very difficult to finance first-time entrepreneurs, bank loans. Research is the key for any investment to be successful. Why is the linkage between research and companies in our country still in low, regardless of its importance in creating relevant to investment? And for it to be more relevant, there has to be not only doing research, but there has to be with the people who need the research. So how do we develop our research agenda so that it also contributes? Some of the research is very academic, it's very theoretical. And I would expect that, like CBE, the research you do will be much more applied, although you can also generate some theoretical research for publishing. But even some applied research, there is a way you can publish. So I would expect to be direct yourself more in applied research, and the skills for doing applied research are different from the skills for doing theoretical research. So you need to develop those skills. You need to develop skills for doing action research, which is much more useful in businesses or for investors. So there is very difficult to bring any meaningful transformation. But also the institution has to provide incentives. But entrepreneurial people don't always wait for incentives. So when Professor was leading the transformation, he was not doing that because somebody promised him to give him something, to increase his salary. It is on a drive from inside. So that is what will drive also collaboration with industry. Can entrepreneurship help to connect skills, culture, and institution? Tanzanian pathway towards sustainable development. Yes, of course, entrepreneurship can do that. And that's what I have been talking about, that we need to develop entrepreneurial culture, we need to develop entrepreneurial skills, and we need to develop entrepreneurial institutions. And we cannot, without entrepreneurial skills, without individuals who are entrepreneurial, you cannot have entrepreneurial institutions. And we need to promote this culture, entrepreneurial culture, from home, from our children. taking responsibility, self-reliance, taking risks, taking responsibility for projects, doing things by their hands, producing results, taking a different classroom. So we need to develop this from our homes, but also in our classrooms, in our churches, in our mosques. It is something we need to cultivate so that we have more entrepreneurial people who can then contribute to developing entrepreneurial institutions and then strengthen the culture. Is that the last question? So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olomi, for your response to the questions. Thank you very much. And from your one, you say, if you want to be an entrepreneur, be an entrepreneur. And if you want, and you have opportunity to do better, that's the call that all of us, we have opportunity to do better. If we want to be entrepreneur, we have to be entrepreneur. But also he said, if you want to love your wife, love your wife. And I add one saying from that, if you want to love your husband, love husband. Thank you very much for your presentation, all the three keynote speakers. And we are about to end up our morning session. Now I would like to welcome just one or two questions from other key speakers and other participants front here. All keynote speakers and participants in front. If you have any question, you're welcome. Yeah.
My question goes to Pamjema. When we track the history of our nation and looking at the academicians used to contribute to national development or discussion, something at upper level, if it didn't go well, academic staff was in the forefront and the students in the 70s, 80s. So what we see now, the academic freedom have lost. Despite of having many higher institutions, if you compare to 1960s, 70s, we had only one. So is it when a punch perished and the academic freedom also disappeared? So how can academicians contributing to the national development of discussing issues? Even the students are hiriso, but they have no biting teeth. So what should be done in order to regain again the academic freedom so that academicians and students or higher students can also contribute in the national development?
Samahani, hapa peleke Professor Ime kwa nasa.
Yes, thank you very much for raising this issue related to how the private sector and the universities could collaborate, because that is also something which we are struggling in Finland, how to create those linkages. But there is the one what we have learned in Finland, and we are calling, for example, opening the positions called the working life professors at the university. Work with the companies also to the teaching at the universities. one different type of professorships is that we are not taking too much time from the professors out from the teaching. That these who are so-called working life professors and work companies same time, then they are also collaborating from the universities. The assignment is a bit different. What we recognize that if us, the professors, if we are working with own companies while we are the full-time professors, we are actually taking time from the teaching sessions. And that doesn't our students. So these working life professors, they are with a different contract. They are half-time professors at the universities. They do not have too much teaching, but they have a title behind their research work, and at the same time they entrepreneurship in their own companies. And that model have been actually increasing the this communication and collaboration between the universities, these enterprises in Finland, but not taking time from the full-time professors having like a double duty in their own companies and then the university. So I don't know if this type of models, for example, yeah, we have as well.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to welcome Professor Gemma.
Okay, thank you, the chairman of our governing body, CBE, academic freedom. When we were at the university in the 70s and early 80s, the universities were very active, especially to discuss social justice, freedom, and things like that. At that time, we were only academicians, we were not being involved in government. Right now, there is this theory of Uchawa. Yeah, I should speak the truth. Most of the professors expecting to be nominated to something like that. So if they know the truth, very few are very able to speak the truth that the government is not doing proper. That was possible in the late 70s and the 80s. And at that time, if you remember, Professor Ganilwa, President Nyerere, the Chancellor. So even we could call the president at the University at Nkrumah Hall. And there, he sits as a chancellor and not a president. So that we could give a lot of to the president and we will take it positively. But right now, if you speak a lot to critics to the government, somehow will be silenced. So somehow, our freedom as academicians have been eroded. So, the freedom must be fought. You cannot be given freedom in the golden plate. So it means that we have to claim that when we talk at the university, that is for academic purposes only. We did not let it be part of the political system. We erred when some of the academicians become also active members of especially oppositional parties. You remember when NCR Mageuzi started, most of our leaders were from the university. So in that situation, you cannot be impartial. So avoid taking political position if you want really to have that academic freedom. Avoid politics. That I'm not a member of any political party, but I'm saying what I see as the right thing. But once you know that you are affiliated with Chadema, you are affiliated with ACT Mazalendo or NCR Mageuzi, then you've lost already your freedom by becoming affiliated to a particular party. But you look, for example, I still applaud Professor Shiv. He's very critical, but he's not associated with any political party. And whenever he says, people will listen, because they know that he is not involved in any political party, but what he says his mind. So to revamp the academic freedom is our self-academician, to say no to political issues. So we're just dealing with academic, and when you're talking, it's only about academic, intellectual, and nothing to undermine the ruling party whatsoever. No, we are not involved in that one. But what this is not okay, we say this is not without any that we need that action to lead. The other one from Professor Ime, I'll respond to this, and my colleague will respond to that one. That kind of collaboration with the industry. In Tanzania, I've not seen the situation where professors are working partly at the university and partly working with the industry to bring their knowledge to the innovation to the industry. But some of the academicians have their own companies. They have their own companies. Dr. Olom is one of them, was an academician, but he opened his own companies. The academic then he quitted the university and ran his own company. So that I have not seen that kind. But sometimes we involved people from the industry to conduct research with academicians and also to teach. But not in the other way around. Thank you.
work and practical assignments. Now, to be able to do that, they need to find businesses that they work with. So they ask us to refer some of the businesses that we serve, and then they assign postgraduate, some of them graduate students in the 4th year to the businesses to look at the issues that they are facing. But address the problem and to work with the businesses to address it. And that's how they end their analysis. So we're not talking about industry development collaboration. Right now, it should not actually be an option, because how else will our students learn if all that you want them to reproduce is available? We have to go beyond what is already there and ask them to solve real problems. Now, of course, that is a big challenge with the large numbers you have, but when we
find a way around that. So our experience is that we work with some universities, and at least one university in Finland has students also. They are supervising at the University of Dar es Salaam. So through this collaboration, they also brought these 2 master students to IMET, work with us as part of their training. So that's limited experience I have, but I think it is an area that we need to open up, and we need to find innovative ways of making it work in the current context. I want to add on the question raised about why are other TVET institutions not transforming? I think we have one challenge of not being able to see which institution is transforming. Because it's like we are not learning from what is happening here. Even myself, Professor Mjema is my schoolmate, by the way. Went to the same O-level secondary school. But I didn't know he had done this. Until one day, I was driving around CBE and I saw one of the buildings given his name. So I said, he must have done a very good job here. And today now I have heard of the story. So we don't have forums, mechanisms to get information on what is happening in these institutions. So it is quite possible that other institutions are transforming, but we don't know, we don't have the information. I know, I think almost for sure that Arusha Technical College went through a transformation as well. And probably Arusha Institute of Accountancy. And there will be others. So we need to have ways of learning about what is happening in our so that they can also serve as role models. We need to research them, to document them, to share them in conferences like this. University of Iringa, for I think more than 6 years, probably 10, they have been implementing a model called Team Academy. They started with a university, a technical university from Finland, and they have a very interesting learning by doing program. But if you ask, and a lot of leaders will go there and they say, my God, is this in Tanzania? I cannot believe. But if you ask people, I don't know, in CBE, maybe they don't even know this is happening. You go to ask people in other institutions, they don't even know. So we are not learning from each other. I mentioned Sugeko. Quite impressive, actually. But how many of us know? What can we learn from this model? How can we probably copy some of the aspects, or maybe customizing them to our own context? So there is a big learning gap in our ecosystem that we need to address. To be able to see some good examples, we need to study this. And see, for example, this Team Academy has been producing graduates for maybe 6 years or more.